Well, hello again. As you can see, I've got this thing torn apart once more. The plan today was to get everything put back together and then hook everything up with gator wires, and later on in the video turn the radio on, see if I get some noise out of the speaker. Unfortunately, the way it stands right now, that's not going to happen. Now these two capacitors, you'll remember from the last video, I needed to put those in. They were down into the tar. I had to clip wires and solder the new 0.5 microfarad capacitors in, which has been done. I've also reinstalled the coil and that we repaired. This coil is now all hooked up and it doesn't even look like it was ever broken. I'm kind of happy about the results of that. It's all soldered up underneath. That only leaves us with one other capacitor to replace, and that's the one inside this can right here. And we're going to be replacing it with this. Now I could just clip off these wires and hook the capacitor across them, but my curiosity has gotten the best of me. I'm going to see if I can't get that stuff out of there and maybe restuff this down in there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that or not, but it's worth a try. And if I can't do it, if it can't be done, if it's too much of a problem, at least someone else down the pike in the future will know that I gave it a try and failed, or I gave it a try and was successful. One other thing, last time I pointed out on the schematic that there were various condensers in the schematic, and I pointed them out. Let's see, where's our schematic? This way. I think it's this way. Nope, it's this way. Okay, I pointed out condensers that were located in various places along the schematic between the, and I called them condensers because that's what they were, was condensers on the schematic. But a condenser is the old way of saying capacitor. A condenser is a capacitor. For instance, here's one right here. They call it the speaker filter condenser. It's located right there. The speaker filter condenser. That's the one we're fixing to change out right now. This one right here. So I need to get that in there. I'm going to take my heat gun. I'm going to heat this thing not from the front but from the rear. There's paint on the front. I'm going to try to heat it up from the rear, and maybe this, and then kind of like pull it, and maybe this entire thing will slide right out. I don't know. Like I said, it may be a total bust, but we're going to give it the old college try. I'll get back with you in a few seconds here. Well, that's it. It's pretty messy, but it came out there. It came out, but it wound up charring just a little bit up here because it wouldn't come loose, and I had to apply quite a bit of heat to it, and the paint got a little bit charred, but it's not that big a deal. And boy, what a messy thing this turned out to be. If you look at it, you can see down in here that one of those wires is connected to this long tab running down here. That's one side of the capacitor. And we'll go ahead and unwrap the other side, and you'll be able to see how they're both connected. And there's the other side. And there's the wire connection right there. You can barely make it out. Down at the bottom, it's got a number in there, 44, underneath all that wax. And again, it's just foil and paper wrapped around and around and around and around, and a tab put on each side to form the plates that the wires are soldered to. What we're going to do now is just go ahead and snip this mess off right there like that. We'll get rid of this, and then go ahead and hook up this one to each of those two wires. Okay, there she be. There she be. Got it all hooked up and ready to go. All I have to do now is slide it down inside the case, and everything will be fine. Now what I did here is I put a little bit of a Teflon tube on it and ran the Teflon tube all the way up tight against the body of the capacitor as far as it would go. Then I went ahead and made my coil on each end of the lead, put the coil over the end of the bare wires, soldered them in place, and then pulled down a couple of heat shrink tubes that I had slid up the wire earlier. Shrunk them up, and we are ready to go. That's a good solid connection, and it should fit right inside the old box just like that. Cool! That's it. The box is back on. I may have to take a little bit of hot glue and stick it up there to kind of hold it in. I'm not worried about it falling out, but it is a little bit loose sitting in there. Probably wouldn't hurt to put a little blob of hot glue right there and a little blob of hot glue right there. Make sure it stays in there with no problem. But other than that, that's done. By the way, that was a 0.3 microfarad capacitor. I used 0.33 is what I had. Now I told you that I wanted to go ahead and fire this thing up, but it wasn't going to happen. And the reason it's not going to happen, I'll show you next. This is the grid leak resistor for the detector tube. And it fits down in here in that little fuse holder affair, just like that. Well, it's supposed to be 2 megs in resistance. This is your audio side, and remember the side with the coils is your RF side. And this thing is supposed to fit down in there right there, your grid leak resistor, 2 megs. And let me show you what happened when I put it on the meter. Alright, I've got the grid leak resistor between a couple of gator wires here. They're hooked into the meter, and as you can see, I'm on the 20 meg scale. Nothing. Nothing. No continuity at all. None. 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 This baby is wide open. It's no good. I don't know. That's the showstopper. I wanted to fire this thing up, but I can't do it now. Grid leak resistor. It's 2 megs, 1 watt, and I don't have a 1 watt. 2 meg, of course I don't have it. No matter what I stock, when it comes time that I need a certain size or a certain value cap or resistor, I never have it. I can have 6 million resistors and caps, and sure enough, the one I need would not be in there. Well, what do you do now? Well, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heat the ends of this thing. I got nothing to lose. It's no good. I'm going to heat the end of this thing. Maybe there's solder in there. It'll melt and reconnect. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll give us a reading. I just need a reading, you know. I'll take a meg. I don't care. Anything that'll help us get the old radio fired up and operational. I've determined by messing around with this thing a little bit that one end right here is slightly loose. Slightly loose. Now this grid leak resistor only is comprised of 2 metal ends with a wire down the center of a glass tube. And the wire is what, you know, is, I don't know what kind of wire they use, but this particular thickness and length is supposed to be 2 megs. So let's go ahead and touch a little heat to one end up here, this end right here. Let's see if we can't get something to heat up and maybe remake contact. Alright, we'll let that cool and we'll give it another test. Well, as you can see, we had no luck with that attempted fix. I'm going to go ahead and remove both of these caps, and I'm going to test that wire by itself. Just hook up my multimeter to each end of the wire and see what kind of reading I get. If I get a decent reading, then I've got to clean out all the solder from each of these caps, put brand new solder in, and maybe try to get that wire reconnected. So let's give that a try and see what happens. Well, that idea was a total bust also. I got the caps off, but it turns out that the wire inside that glass, that's just not a hollow tube with the wire, you know, floating inside of it. The glass is actually molded around the wire. Probably a heat process they did at the factory. And it won't come out, and it's down inside a little deeper than it should be. So that'll be the end of it. Until next time, I'm going to go ahead on eBay and see if I can't find a 1 watt 2 meg resistor somewhere, at least a 1 watt. Might have to go a little bit higher on the resistance, 2.2 megs or something like that. But until next time, folks, this thing's just going to have to sit a little bit longer. The only thing keeping us from getting it going is this stupid grid leak resistor. Ugh!